Happy Tuesday, everybody. Dennis Fithian with you here on Afternoon Live Show here at 1 o'clock weekdays, discussing what's going on with Michigan. What's going on with Michigan this week is, after all those games that they were playing, 3 and 5 days, they got a game coming up. Got to wait all the way till Thursday when they're headed to Iowa City to take on the Hawkeyes. So between now and then, he's sitting around thinking about things to talk about. You're big Michigan basketball. Football's never too far from being top of mind. I have some thoughts on football coming up a little bit later on. If you're watching this live, don't forget you can always, when you're looking at the podcast, give you a rundown. I'm going to talk about where Michigan basketball players are showing up in mock drafts. That's why you see that mock draft template up there. We're going to get to those coming up straight ahead. But if you're not a basketball fan, mock draft fan, you want to skip ahead and watch some video of Kenneth Walker, big nose guard that Michigan is bringing the next year as a freshman. Go ahead, skip ahead. You'll see. See those rundowns in the podcast, and when you watch it, I put it in there with the YouTube description. Maybe I need to do that. Can I do that? I think I can go back retroactively do that. All right, it's the Maize and Blue review, TMBR. Let's get this thing underway. So. Yeah, we're going to talk some Michigan hoops with some mock drafts. We've got the Michigan recruiting spotlight with the nose guard, Kenneth Walker. And I'll give you a word or two on football. I'll get to the quarterbacks, and then I'm going to look tomorrow on who's going to replace Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo. We'll start out with the big guns. Pull those big guns out right away. Well, let's get in, talk a little mock draft right off the bat here. And, to do that, you look and, Michigan's got three guys right now. One is Hunter Dickinson, and Hunter Dickinson, Michigan's best player and their number one option. And, All-American, had a fantastic season a year ago and, worked on his outside shot and he's developed his game a little bit. I mean, his game is, vastly different than it was last year. Last year it was mostly, get down on that left block and, teams were like, make him use his right hand. Sometimes he'd get down to that right block and, he would use his right hand. He's pretty special. And we know that he's stepped out and, he'll shoot that 10-foot jump around the baseline. He'll go out to the 3-point line and he'll start throwing up threes. So much so in the last week or two, it was a novelty. And then it became like, oh, okay. And then it became like, wow, this really is part of his game. So, is Hunter Dickinson popping up in mock drafts? We'll get to that straight ahead, along with the two McDonald's All-Americans, the 5 stars, Caleb Houstan and Moussa Diabate, if they're showing up at all. Now, the one thing it's with this and the timing, the NBA just had their trade deadline last week. So the previous week, there was a lot of the NBA trade deadline stuff. And then, the actual trade deadline, taking place last week and, tons of movement back and forth and other stories. So, there hasn't been many where you have the up-to-date. Now, when it comes to the NBADraft.net, they're always, updating their mock drafts. And you see this one just, from the 11th, a couple days ago, 4 days ago, once a week they are doing it. And, the good thing about mock drafts this year is you got, the Pistons not doing much out on the floor. I watched them last night against Washington, but, they're right up there. They'll be in contention for a number 1 overall again. And if it's not going to be number 1, number 2, number 3. So every time you do pop up a mock draft, it's interesting whether it's going to be Jamari Smith Jr. there from Auburn, Jaden Ivey, who Michigan fans are familiar with over the last week, because you've seen him now twice. Chet Holmgren, the beanpole that plays out there in Gonzaga, could be Paolo Banchero from Duke. Every time the Blue Devils are on, look at his teammate has leapfrogged him in this particular mock draft. But the one thing about NBADraft.net, I can tell you that they don't have Caleb Houstan or Moussa Diabate or Hunter Dickinson first or second round. And, they were somebody before the season. You saw Caleb Houstan in the lottery. I don't remember if I saw Diabate in the first round, but, then slowly Houstan dropped towards the end of the first round. I never did see him in the second round at NBADraft.net. Now they don't have him at all. But he does appear in a few different mocks, and we'll go to him here. This is the sporting news that I'm going to put up here and take a look at first. And if you can see, they just did one recently as well, the 11th. Here's the 15th. So this is a recent mock draft. Kyle Irving, not Kyrie Irving, Kyle Irving from the Sporting News putting this one together. And if you look down at 25, there he is, Caleb Houstan, making a first-round mock still as of last week, 6'8", 205 to have him listed as. The problem here, it says that he's 18 years old. Give him a little bit of a break. This is last month he turned 19. I don't know, so they're wrong, but he just did turn 19. The Sporting News saying Houstan hasn't had the big year that was anticipated of him, but he still projects to have a high ceiling as a pro at 6'8", with a reported wingspan that is well over 7 feet. He's built like a prototypical 3-and-D forward. He has a smooth shooting stroke and has all the tools to be a lockdown defender, but he could develop as a shot creator to raise his potential even more. His upside is undeniable, but there is still work to do. Well, you know what? Some information out of there. You might not agree with him, being a late first rounder. I don't myself, but I didn't realize, at 6'8", the wingspan to be well over 7 feet. When I watch Caleb play, I was a little bit surprised that he doesn't have any of that, any of the step backs, any put it on the floor, really going side to side, all these different things that, you see a lot of the scorers and a lot of the shooters, they have those step back moves, and he didn't really have any of that. He put it on the floor, pull up a little bit at the free throw line. Yeah. And he can, drive and dish a little bit, but, he's really a stationary set 3-point shooter, which, you think about the guys in the NBA that are doing that, those guys are 7 foot tall. 6'8" guys. I mean, they got step back moves, and you're Kevin Durant. You got step back and fade away at 6'11" and a 7'5", 7'6" reach. But something in there that the wingspan. If you get a 7 foot wingspan, maybe you can just be a set shooter. Now you got to knock them down. But there it is from the Sporting News. They got Caleb Houstan still as of last week in the first round, late in the first round at 25. There's only 30 teams in the NBA. Now, if you Google mock draft NBA, this is the first site that comes up, the NBA draft room. And if you look, I don't know if you can see it if you're watching here. Here it is, updated 2/13. So just over the weekend, they had their update. You see they got Jabari Smith and Chet Holmgren going 1-2. Who would the Pistons take? If I had to make that selection today, I'd take Jabari Smith. But you know what? There's a nice four attractive players, probably a lot more than that. But really right now, from Holmgren to Ivy to Ponchero, Pistons get one of those guys. That's nice. But we're here talking about the Michigan players and the NBA draft room. Now, there are a couple guys that have been doing it for a long time. They're, however, they've been able to get their site, positioned to be number one on Google. And it also pops up there pretty quick on Twitter if you're looking there. Those guys have done a pretty good job. But, their bios, they just go by their first name and said, hey, we've been running it for a long time. And, this is what we do. That being said, when it comes down to the Michigan players, they are all popping up on the NBA draft room. Here is, if you look, 23, 24, 25, Moussa Diabate. So Sporting News had Caleb Houstan going 25. Here's Diabate going, and this particular site calls Diabate a tall, skinny, and talented forward who shows flashes of big-time ability. I'll agree with that. That's a pretty good rundown on him. I thought he was 6'11". I have him listed at 6'10". Who knows? They comp him to Jonathan Isaac Light. I don't know if that's a great compliment or not. Isaac is working out all right in the NBA. But if you go down a little bit further on this particular site, you can see that, so you got 28, 29, 30. The last pick in this draft, it is Caleb Houstan in this mock draft, 6'8", a smooth, big wing with a great-looking three-point shot, is becoming a more versatile scorer and is lethal from downtown. Their comp is the ghost, Mike Dunleavy Jr. Been a while since Dunleavy Jr. Was in the league out of Duke. If you don't know who he is, his dad, longtime coach in the league, Dunleavy Jr. But there you have both players showing up late in the first round. And then they go into the second round. Let's blow this screen up a little bit, or as much as we can. You got the Clippers, Pelicans, and you're looking here through there. Oscar T from Kentucky. I like him. Second round pick. At 55, they got the Pistons with a second round pick from the Nets, and the Pistons select Hunter Dickinson. How about that? Hunter with some love in the NBA draft room, going 55, 7'1", 260. The comment on Dickinson: has obvious physical tools and plays an old school physical game, but is heavy-footed and kind of slow. They comp him to a smaller Boban. Yeah, I don't know. Boban's kind of a one of a kind. I don't know about a smaller Boban. And, I'm sure Hunter doesn't like reading, heavy-footed and kind of slow. That's not the most glowing thing that can be said about you, but they also have him there in the second round. Garzilla, the player of the year last year from the Hawkeyes, that was the knock on him, and that's why he was in the second round. But can you do some things if you're heavy-footed and kind of slow? I mean, you can do some things, and I think you've seen a little bit more nimble. He looked like he was in better shape. I don't know if it was overall conditioning or he lost a little body fat, maybe both. I mean, he looked a little bit better. I see what they're saying. Heavy footed. I mean, he's 7'1". There's not a lot of guys that are running around on their balls of their feet, that are 7'1". But Dickinson does show up here. And and one thing about Hunter and all these players, ESPN did a mock about 3 weeks ago, and they dropped Houstan and no sign of Diabate, no sign of Dickinson. It was just like with NBADraft.net. So I'm putting up some of the ones actually that you can see where these guys at least showed up. Like, let's go to the next one. CBS. Here they are. I got Chet Holmgren up top. I got him going number one. There you see Chet. There you see me. Get myself down to the bottom of the screen. And let's see where they have this mock going. Caleb Houstan at 23. So this is the highest projection I have seen from the Michigan freshman. Their comment on Caleb. First of all, wait, did I see when this mock happened? February 3rd. So it's been 2 weeks since they have put this projection out. But here's what they had to say about Caleb, a somewhat inconsistent freshman. A somewhat inconsistent freshman season for Caleb Houstan has seen a turnaround of late. He's hitting above 50% from three-point range the last few weeks and taken on an expanded role as a scorer for Michigan. That's a positive sign after struggling earlier in the year. Seems like the former 5-star is figuring things out, and his jumbo wing potential is intriguing. There's somebody else talking about that wingspan. I guess that's what they're alluding to, a jumbo wing potential. He's a wing, but jumbo 6'8". I think the wingspan is what they're alluding to there. So there's Caleb getting the love from CBS as recently as 2 weeks ago. Now, here's what you have to say if you're a Michigan fan, if you're Caleb Houstan. Let's look before NBA draft.net dropped Houstan out, or they had him late in the first round. Their comment on Houstan was, hey, there were a lot of 5-stars or highly ranked freshmen that came back and had good sophomore seasons, and look at where they've positioned themselves. And, that could be the case with Caleb Houstan here. Now, maybe he, starts, firing it in from everywhere, shows some consistency. It gets Michigan into the tournament. Heck, you get into the Big Ten tournament and you have a couple good games there, have a couple good games in the tournament, NCAA tournament. And you know what? He could move himself back into the first round or feel like, he's going to be a solid, top 20 player, if not just a solid first round player. So, there's still obviously basketball left to be played here. But if you just look over at the sophomores, there's Jaden Ivey, who has moved himself in the 6'7" wing from Arizona. You can see that he's put himself into a lottery position. Johnny Davis, people weren't talking about Johnny Davis at all last year, and here he is in the lottery. Max Christie, a fellow freshman, though. I mean, that's kind of what you were thinking that, Caleb was going to be all year long, was going to be in there in the lottery, and that's where Christie is right now. How about Keegan Murray? So the one thing about these mock drafts is you see Keegan Murray, Iowa, Johnny Davis, Wisconsin. Those are the next 2 games that Michigan are playing. They're going up against 2 guys that are considered lottery picks in Davis and Murray. Of course, they just did have to go and face Ivy twice. And you saw, I think, he was the real deal, despite, Michigan fans saying that he was overrated or having those a chance of being overrated through there. There's Kessler, a sophomore, big man from Auburn, who's in the top 20 here. Strother from Gonzaga, sophomore, 6'7", similar type size there and position of Caleb Houstan. Mark Williams, another big man there as a sophomore. Terry Eason, LSU. So I don't know, yet to be determined here when it's coming down and you're thinking about Caleb Houstan and Diabate. See if there's any surprises there. I'll work from the last pick in the second round up to the first pick in the second round and see if there's any names that jump out here for you. Not really. A lot of international players, you watch the draft and a lot of guys' names you can't pronounce. There's a guy, Oscar T. from Kentucky, I like in the second round. E.J. Liddell, I'll go out on a limb. I think E.J. Liddell, I think E.J. Liddell will be somebody that'll be taken in the first round. I like Johnny Juzang too, but honestly, I haven't seen what kind of season that he has had. Watching him in the tournament last year made me think that that guy was a first round pick. There's TJD, Trace Jackson Davis, first pick in the second round there out of Indiana. So you get a little bit of a feel where guys are going in the different mock drafts and everything. So I look at it like this, when you come in, you want to be a 5-star, you want to be an All-American, you want to be a McDonald's All-American, you want everybody to, talk about you. You want to show up in all of these mock drafts, but, at what point do you decide, hey, I'm going to go or I'm going to stay around here? And, from a fan standpoint, when you talk about Caleb Houstan, it's like, if Michigan doesn't make the tournament and, Caleb Houstan goes pro, good luck to him if he gets taken in the first round. I mean, that's kind of the idea. You get that guaranteed money. You don't get taken in the first round. What do you a team picks you up, you ended up playing in the G League, you get a little bit of money to do that. I mean, would you rather play in the G League next year if you're Caleb Houstan? I mean, you're a pro, or do you want to come back for a sophomore season? I would think that you'd want to come back for a sophomore season, because then you could, if you do put it together and you're consistent, you get a little stronger, you could see yourself, getting that guaranteed money and getting that guaranteed, 3-year deal. You'd make an awful lot of money being able to do that. Plus, with name, image, and likeness, it's not like, you're sitting there thinking, that 50 grand, 75 grand would be pretty attractive, to play in the G League. You might be able to make up most, if not all of that with NIL. And I think the same thing with Moussa, incredible athlete. And, you've seen flashes like, against Purdue in the first half. He was awesome. If he played like that all year, he'd be a lottery pick. So, finding that consistency, does Moussa want to go play in the G League next year? I mean, those are the questions. And then it comes down to Hunter Dickinson. Like, it doesn't look like Hunter Dickinson's going to get taken in the first round. It doesn't seem like anybody thinks that he's a first round pick. Somebody take a flyer on him in the second. Okay. Teams are going to want him in their camp. Like, when you're 7-1, you got some skill, you go out there and you say, hey, can he be a guy that we can put out there for 10 minutes in a game, especially if we're going up against some teams that have some bigs? Heck yeah. I mean, you watch enough of the NBA, look at these benches, and, look at the guys. So an NBA team, I would say that Hunter Dickinson, it's an interesting thing, because I think Hunter Dickinson could play in the NBA for 10 years. And, if he goes, he could make, I'd say for 5 to 10 years, guy could make like, from $2 million to $100 million. I mean, it's such a wide gap there from Hunter, and it just depends when he wants to go and and start doing that. But I don't think he's not gonna get that money right out of the gate. He's gonna have to, and sometimes when you talk about the NBA, it's good not to get taken in the first or second round if you can go in there and show everybody you can play, because then you can go and you go out there and he develops more of his outside game, and you can end up signing a longer term contract. But there's a chance that maybe he'd come out. I don't know, would there be a chance? Would I advise Dickinson? What I would advise is that when it comes down to name, image, and likeness, and it comes to basketball, Hunter Dickinson would be the kind of player that I would want to throw a lot of money at to get him back, because as a college player, he is awesome. He is great. He's exactly the kind of player that you would want. And could you think about having him back for another year, and him being that much better, whatever the going rate would be, whether it be 6 figures, remember they'd get him close to $1 million. To me, that would be worth it. Getting Hunter Dickinson back in the fold of the maize and blue. If there's somebody that I would want to spend the name, image, and likeness, if there was somebody that, you'd want to throw the money at, to me, it would be Hunter Dickinson. So maybe they'll figure that out and they'll get that working. That's what I would do. And then, but, like, does he want to make the decision? Like, he's a little bit older anyways as a sophomore. Maybe he just wants to get on with it. But the other two, unless they have an end of the season where they show a lot more consistency, because they both, are very, we've seen the talent, the glimpses of talent, if not games. We've seen a couple games, certainly flashes. If they're more flashes and there's a couple just, some games that they could string together, these guys could go in the first round. So we'll see. I mean, there's only 7 games left in the regular season, the Big Ten tournament, and then maybe the NCAA tournament. That last one, maybe it'll be playing in the NIT. Like, whatever you're going to get done there. So that's it. The other part, when it comes down to those 7 games, and, I was talking about what Michigan's got to do to get into the tourney. And, I thought that they had to go, and before they lost on Saturday, I only thought that they could lose 3 more games. Looking more at the bracketology and everything else, I think they probably can still afford to lose 3 more out of these 7. And then, last night, the debate on the message boards, the Wolverine Den, the Den, I saying, look, they can go 3-4 and still make it. But Yeah, maybe they can. But if you're sitting here, if you're a Michigan fan today, they've got these games on the road, Iowa Thursday and Wisconsin on Sunday. And then they got two more to wrap up the month against Rutgers, the up and down Scarlet Knights, who are playing for their tournament lives. And then they're going to play Illinois, who's ranked in the top 25. That's 4 games. I mean, they split those. There's 2 losses. So then they got 3 games in March. Michigan State and Iowa at home, and then Ohio State. Can they really lose 2 of those 3? Beat Michigan State and then lose to Iowa and lose to Ohio State at the end of the year, and you feel like, oh yeah, you know what? They're going to be in the tournament. I don't think that. Now, stranger things have happened. There's a lot of different things. I know from the net and all the numbers and everything else. Michigan is a big brand. They would want to put them in there, but you are. I think even if you go 4-3 in these remaining games, there's still a chance you're sitting there at the end, like holding your breath. You don't want to hold your breath. Go 5-2. You feel like you're really in there, and you make a little run when you get into the Big Ten tournament as well. So there you go. All right, we still have some football ahead. I've been having fun watching some videos of the different Michigan players, and we're going to watch another one today. Defensive tackle Kenneth Grant. Here he is. He's a big guy, and look at him smashing the quarterback here, and he's coming out. He's every bit of 300 plus, 340, I think. But you can see at his size here, he gets down the line, smashing guys into the sideline. This one might be the most impressive one, where he goes through 2 guys, just buries the quarterback. Say, little spin move. That quarterback was smart to duck down there. Couple more from the big fella. See him holding up, and then just wrapping his big arm and swallowing up the defender there. See him right over the nose, getting into the backfield. Man, just landing on that. He put all of his weight onto that running back. They can't do that with a quarterback, but with a running back, you can do that. And that's him just slamming the opposing player here, him getting into the backfield, showing some of that speed. And here's the big nose guard again. Oh no, now he's sliding. This is him on. I thought for a second it was on offense, but no, he comes in and blows up that play. We'll get one more in here. See him right over here. It's not on the nose, over here at right tackle. He's got a double team, splits it, gets to the quarterback, and just kills him. I guess is that he's knocked out a few players. I mean, you're not big like this guy and going in and just making play after play. It's a highlight reel. But you get a good idea, and you're like, wait, how big is the guy? Well, see what he's listed at. Let me go blue. We put that up there. Kenneth Grant, 6'4", 335 coming in as a freshman. That's big. 6'4", 335. And you know what? He looks it. The young man looks 6'3", 335, tying it up and just wrapping up those ball carriers again. Good stuff from the big man. I like his highlight tape. Ever get to talk to him and say, man, you take it easy on some of those high school players, man. See, those guys don't take it easy in college. You don't have to, KG. And you wouldn't think that he would get in coming up this year, but I don't know. Stranger things happen. Talking about a nose tackle, I wouldn't think so. I would think that there'd be a red shirt in order when it comes to Kenneth Grant. All right, 2 things here at the end I wanted to tell and talk about. One is going to be the quarterback situation, and then we'll talk about tomorrow what we're going to get to football-wise. I'll give you a little memorabilia minute. Pull out this card. Yesterday I saw it was a Chad Henne card when he played for Jacksonville. This just doesn't do him justice. One of the all-time favorite Wolverines, shoelace. And he was a running back with Jacksonville. And, there he is toting the rock. But, when I see Shoelace, it's more of him with his arm cocked, throwing the ball, getting ready to run, do both. But, here he is. He looks like a running back in the NFL. Still one of the favorites of Michigan football fans. All right. I've seen a lot over the last week of whether it's Michigan fans themselves or opponents, like looking at the Michigan quarterback situation and, stressing out over it. And people like Michigan fans, like, stop saying mean things about Cade. Let the quarterback, position play out. Don't run this guy off. Why would you say that guy's going to leave? All these different things. And it is the number one story if you're talking about Michigan next year. Like, it's the first thing that anybody is going to ask. Like, what do you think is going to happen at the quarterback position? And so you don't have to have an opinion. You could just sit back and say, well, I'm a Michigan fan, and I'm just going to let the coaches go ahead and make that decision, and I'm going to be happy with it. And, it's an understandable position. Like, hey, you're not down there watching practice, or you're going to let the media go ahead and find out not what the coaches are going to tell them, but maybe what some other people are telling them. And then you're just going to go with that. And you're going to say, okay, whatever they think, I'm good with it. And again, that's fine. You can go ahead and have your opinion on what you have seen this year, and then what how a true freshman can get better, and what you've seen from Cade McNamara. Both of these guys have the same amount of time left that they could use here. You could still see these guys for 3 more seasons, both of them. So there's not that a big age gap when it comes down to it. So, how do you think it's going to play out? And is there a part where you do have hype, recruiting hype that enters the chat here, that enters anytime that you're going to talk about these two? Yes, that's going to happen when you have somebody like JJ McCarthy, who's supposed to be, the next great quarterback, 5-star and superstar, a first round draft pick. That is going to get people excited. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Should you temper your enthusiasm about no? Okay, even when he came in, his first game that he came in, he was pushing down the defensive tackle or linebacker that was coming after him, rolling out, throwing the ball across the field for a big time touchdown. It was amazing. A 69-yard touchdown. It went to Baldwin. I look at it like this: the best case scenario is that both of these guys stay around. They compete in the spring. They go into the summer phase, and then they get into fall camp. I don't think that Jim Harbaugh, you just know how any coach is going to be there. And I don't see Jim Harbaugh coming out and, telling anybody who the starter is going to be. He's going to want to keep that under his hat. And, maybe will we know? I mean, if they kick off against Colorado State the 3rd of September, maybe we'll know in September and have an idea. Or, maybe Harbaugh won't say anything that week. We'll just see what happens, coming up when they play Colorado State. That actually would be the best case scenario if both of them stay on this roster and you go into the season with both of them. And I don't really care. I have my pick who I think, is going to end up being the starter there, which I will tell you. But having them both on the roster and going into the season, that's what's best for Michigan football. And having Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland about, the easiest, 4 teams that you could possibly have to start a season, you can do whatever you want. You want to start Cade and you want to play JJ in the second quarter, and then you want to, do the same thing in the second half. You want to start McNamara for the entire game and then, put McCarthy and give him the start against Hawaii. You could do that. That's number one. It's the best case scenario if you keep both of these guys. But with the transfer portal, it's very likely that after spring that you will just hear about one of these guys transferring. I think that's the most likely scenario because the writing will be on the wall, and one of these guys will bolt. There'll be a half dozen, maybe a dozen other schools out there, Power 5 schools, that have quarterback openings that one of these guys will be like, I can go start there if I can't start here. And I think it's perfectly understandable for one of them to do that. And like, again, if you're just a Michigan football fan, you hope that both of them stay around here. And, they compete throughout the summer, and then you go in and, see what happens when the season starts. So the most likely thing is that one of them goes. I think that if they both stay around, that Harbaugh is going to come up. He's going to have to. You saw McCarthy was playing last year anyways. He was being put in. If they both come back this year, it's going to be a pretty even split through these first 4 games. I would guess that the competition would spill over into the regular season, and however you want to do it. McNamara starts the first quarter of the opener, and McCarthy plays the second series or the entire second quarter. Whoever plays the best starts the third quarter. That's what Carr did with Brady and Henson. There are some similarities, of course. Maybe we can all see those. I could very easily see that happening. Now, saying that makes somebody told me that I was milquetoast with that prediction. Like, oh, you're just going to predict that they're going to spill over to the regular season, that they're both going to play? Make a call. Well, that actually is my prediction, is that one of them is going to leave. That's the most likely thing that's going to happen. My second prediction is that you're going to have a rotation of one of these guys, whether it's the first quarter and the other guy takes over the second quarter, or the one guy starts the first game, the other guy starts the second game. I mean, how many more things can happen there? I do think that's going to happen. So I don't think it's, let's just say it's McNamara. I don't think that, I don't think that means if they stay around for the season that's a bad thing necessarily, because McCarthy is going to get every chance to, when the real bullets fly, even though those games technically count. I'm talking about when they go to Iowa, when they have to play at Indiana and then Penn State. Those 3 games after those first 4. That's when it really counts. Now, I think because of the ceiling of J.J. McCarthy, from what I saw from him last year, the arm that is a cannon, that a fastball that is delivered into areas that most quarterbacks can't throw. He can deliver that. Now, can he get that accuracy downfield? That's going to be a big thing for him. But I think because of the upside and the ceiling of McCarthy, I think that's who ultimately is going to be the quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean I'm hating on Cade McNamara. That doesn't mean I want him to transfer. That doesn't mean that, here you go again. You said the same thing about Henson, and look what happened there. Look, you just have your opinion. Make your call, and it doesn't mean you're down on the other guy. And of course, that's how opponents, will view it. Oh, the guy that won it for you, you're dogging him because you're just going to go with the recruiting numbers on this guy. There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that truth to it. But you know what? You're going with who you think is, you're giving your opinion on who you think is going to be the best. And yeah, you know what? The one thing, I thought Dylan McCaffrey was a better choice than Joe Milton. But obviously the coaches didn't think that, and McCaffrey saw the writing on the wall, and he bolted. Now, I always wondered what was going on because they weren't hitting. They're out there in, shorts and T-shirts throwing it around. What kind of real competition can you have out of that? Well, Joe looked great in shorts and a T-shirt and can throw the ball the length of the football field. I get it. But from what I saw from McCaffrey, all of a sudden you got McNamara, McCarthy, and you got to go back to McCaffrey. A lot of M's that you're talking about with the quarterback situation. The quarterback situation and Jim Harbaugh hasn't exactly been, easy street. And this thing just hasn't been paved with, with any chance of any question marks. In fact, it's been the opposite. There's been question marks the entire time. But the reason that I think it's going to be McCarthy, and again, there's nothing against Cade and everything. Cade wins the job. That's great for him. Could I see easily, if both of them stay around, McNamara getting the nod for the first quarter in the first game, because of his experience and everything and how coaches, I could easily see that. Yes, I could. But you know what? Just in the last 5 years, Dabo Sweeney, he went to Trevor Lawrence when he had an experienced quarterback. He did that with a freshman. We saw what Nick Saban did when he took Hurts out of that championship game at the half against Georgia a few years ago and put Tua in. Bama won because of that. That's like the name of the game now. Like, experience counts, but the talent and the upside, all of that is why I feel like, it's going to end up being McCarthy when they do start going for real. And it just happens to be starting out October. When October comes, I think the quarterback will be J.J. McCarthy. Now, the reason I don't say it so emphatically and guaranteed, because, there's no guarantees on that, being silly. I'm going to give my prediction on it. But they do have those 4 games to work with where you can play both of them. Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, and Maryland. You can get a lot done in there. So that's how I see it playing out. Tomorrow, you've got to replace 2 guys that could be top 10 picks. I think certainly top 15 picks. I'll guarantee top 20 picks, David Ajabo and Aiden Hutchinson. How is Michigan going to replace Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo? Is it going to be Upshaw, Morris, McGregor, Guy, Jenkins, Harrell? That's an awful lot of. They all can't. You can't have 6, 7 guys replacing 2. You're going to have to whittle it down to 2 or 3. I will do that tomorrow here on Afternoon Live. Thanks for watching. And until then, leave a comment on the pod and I'll leave the breakdown on the YouTube. Thanks for watching and